I'm Chris Bryant, CCIE number 12933, and welcome to today's Cisco certification video, which frankly is good viewing for those of you working on Microsoft, CompTIA. I don't care what exam you're working on, you're going to get something of value out of today's video. Because what I'm here to help you with today is an aspect of studying for the certification exams that is overlooked probably by 95% of candidates, and that is the mental aspect of planning for peak performance on your exam day. I'm not going to give you a lot of mind tricks here. I'm going to give you some very common sense techniques that are really going to add points to your score on exam day, and I don't care whose exam you're taking, because I can tell you this: if I walked up to you right now in person and said I could add 75 points minimum to your exam score without you having to study one more minute, what would you say to that? You'd say that's a pretty good deal. I'm not here to give you any exam answers, any hints, anything like that at all. What I am here to do is give you some techniques that have not only worked for me over now almost 12 years of taking certification exams, but also my experiences and the experiences of thousands of my students who have used these tips to increase their score on exam day. Some are obvious, a few not so obvious, but let's go ahead and dive in and get started, because we all miss the obvious from time to time. We're all human, and this is the number one thing you can do right off the bat that seems so obvious, but we've all fallen into that trap of, well, I got to study until 2 o'clock in the morning the day before the exam or the morning of my exam. Do not do that. I'm going to tell you point blank, if you don't know something by 8 p.m. the night before your exam, or probably even earlier, you're not going to learn it that night. The die is pretty much cast at that point. What you've got to do at that point, the night before your exam, is raise your performance level the next day by getting some rest. And I sound very passionate about this, and it's because I am, period, but especially on this point, because I have never taken a certification exam where I didn't see at least one or two people in the room. You know, you're all waiting in the room to go in and take your exam, especially if you're taking it first thing in the morning, and you see people just yawning, you know, and they're rubbing their eyes. Now, not all of us are morning people, I understand that, and you really should schedule your exam for your peak time of day. You know, some of us, I personally am a morning person. I like going to take an exam at 8:30. If you're an afternoon person, go take it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Take it at your peak time, but the key is do not stay up late the night before or into the wee hours of the morning, you know, wearily going over your books one more time. It's really not effective study at that point, and like I said, the die is really cast. What you've got to do is get some rest. A couple of things here that'll help you out. If you don't know where your testing center is, find it before your exam day. And again, it sounds obvious, but I've heard from people, and actually one good friend of mine who took a certification exam, and he went to the testing center that he had gone to for years, and they had moved. And all of a sudden, he's got to drive across town at 8:30 in the morning in rush hour trying to make his exam appointment. It never hurts to call your testing center the day before and just confirm your appointment. It's a good idea. Also, I'm not bashing MapQuest here, but it is not always your friend. It is not always going to give you the most accurate path to go to a testing center. You've got a little anxiousness anyway the day you're taking the exam. You just want to get there, and you're focusing on the exam, and you don't want to either try to find the testing center that day or find out it moved. And plan for traffic. I know where I live, and it's not a huge metropolitan area, but there's a testing center I use that takes me 15 minutes to get to in non-peak traffic, and literally almost an hour during rush hour. So if possible, really you should make your first drive to that testing center during rush hour. Just plan for it a little bit, because you don't want to be leaving the house 10 minutes before your exam starts. Be aggressive when you get in there. You know, you're in there, the die is cast, you're in front of the monitor, you're taking the exam, and occasionally I'll hear from a student who's like, well, I'm thinking of taking the test just to see what it's like. No, you're not. You're in there to win. You're in there to succeed. We're not going to take the test just to see what it's like. We are in there to succeed. So be aggressive when you're taking these exams. What you want to go in with is the attitude, and it's not a false attitude. I'm not just rah-rahing you here and saying, hey, go in with a positive attitude. What I want you to do is plan for your success in advance. And then when you show up the morning of your exam, and I don't care if it's the CCENT exam or the A+ exam or the CCIE lab, the attitude you've got to have is, I am already certified, I'm just here to make it official. And if you use that technique, I promise you it will add points to your exam score, because it just makes you that much more confident when you're in the exam room and you're focused on what you're doing. And again, you're just saying, hey, I've already put in the work, I've already put in the sacrifice, I've already put in the study, I've done everything I was supposed to do, and I'm just here to get Cisco's official stamp of approval. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm already certified. It is amazing how well that technique works. Now, we're all surprised by a question in an exam. And again, it doesn't matter what vendor it is. You get 60, 70 questions, you're going to be surprised by one, or say, oh, just say, I don't know. Well, you just have to shrug that off. And again, I go back to a championship sports analogy, whether it's a World Series, whether it's a Super Bowl. No one plays perfectly for 9 innings or for 60 minutes. You're going to get beat on a play. Well, you're going to get beat on an exam question. I've taken exams for well over 10 years. I've never gotten a perfect score. You're not there to get a perfect score. You're there to win. So if you get burned by a question or just surprised by it, just say, just pick a choice, A, B, C, D, whatever you got to do, move on to the next question, and you've got to shrug it off. Just forget about it. It's done. You can't go back. Just let it go. Happens to everybody. Now, I call this finish with a flourish, and I put 3 different definitions of the word flourish on here. Thanks to Merriam-Webster.com for these 3 definitions, because they all apply. You know when you're about 10 questions away from the exam finishing up. You know roughly how many questions you've got when you go in to take an exam. You want to finish with a flourish. I always like to stand up if possible and just stretch. But with about 10 questions to go, you really want to knock out those last 10 questions and seal the deal. So just stretch, do whatever you've got to do right there to really focus on what you're doing, because you're a little anxious when you go in there and you're really going at it, and you might get a little tired near the end. Suck it up. That's not a technical term. I'm just telling you what you got to do. Just take a deep breath and say, I got 10 questions to go, and I'm going to nail all 10. Because that is where you achieve your success. That is where you want to be in that state of activity or production. Now, you don't want to make too many bold and sweeping gestures in the exam room. They tend to frown on that kind of thing, but standing up and stretching, no rule against that. So really finish strong when you're taking these exams. And remember, just shrug it off. If you miss a question, everybody misses a question. Don't worry about that. And again, be aggressive in your test taking. Have that attitude that when you show up, I'm already certified, I've done the work, I'm just here to make it official. I hope you enjoyed these tips. I'm going to have more videos like this for you in the future. I'm Chris Bryant, CCIE number 12933. Come out and visit me at thebryantadvantage.com. I'll see you at the website.